I bet you know John Kidd. He has mentored probably hundreds, not probably, I know it's been hundreds of scouts, not just as a scoutmaster years ago, but as an Eagle Scout mentor to get their Eagle Scout rank. He's been involved in scouts since the 60s and got his Eagle Scout himself in 1970. A few years ago, he was recognized as a distinguished Eagle Scout, which is a pretty special recognition. I mean, we're talking about Neil Armstrong, we're talking about people of that ilk that get recognized nationally as a distinguished Eagle Scout. And in 2010, Dennis Cole, Dennis just retired, but he was the CEO for Patriots Bat Council, which is the administrative area that oversees scouting in most of northern New Jersey. Decided to put together a program to help mentor youth, both boys and girls, between the ages of 14 and 20, into career guidance, and it took the form of a summer camp, but it has more dimensions to it, which John will talk about. I was working with John in Scouts as a Scoutmaster myself years ago, and the program started off, we tried to figure it out. It's taken off on its own. Many youth have gone through this program in the last 8 years, and we hope that it will continue in the future, and I think that's what he wants to speak to you about today. So I turn it over to John Kennedy.
Yeah, when they gave me my 50th anniversary card from Boy Scouts, I knew I was screwed, because when you get something like that. Now, to be honest with you, Boy Scouts has meant a lot to me. I was at Troop 7 at St. Vincent's for many years, because my dad passed early on in my life and as a teen, and it was my Scoutmasters who stepped up and helped me a lot, and some of you might remember the names of Ben Russell, so it was a very important program to me. Yeah, I spent a lot of years there, and I spent a lot of years with coaching. I coached Little League and girls softball, even though I only had a boy, for about 30 years in town. It was funny, when I walked in, lady said to me, "You look familiar, have you been in town long?" I said, "Sure, since 1956. And she said, "Well, then I should know you." I said, "I didn't know her either." So it's both of our problems. And when I come into the Y, you know, I coached swimming here back in the 70s, the boys and girls teams, and my mother was a pin setter for the YMCA on Main Street. And those old bowling lanes became stakes for tents for Troop 7. So it's strange how things come back to you in regards. Just as I brought some handouts and stuff, one of the things, for many years I owned my own engineering company and manufacturing companies. About 8 years ago I sold them, and I brought a report because many people think that manufacturing is dead, and it's been dead in New Jersey. Would it surprise you to know that there's 11,130 manufacturers, about 400,000 employees in New Jersey? I think it would stun you. Without this industry, we lose $100 billion worth of income to this state every year. So it's very interesting. It's sort of a different take for me after owning my own businesses, and we create an annual report for that. The leader program, as John said, I started to get very frustrated when my son Sean got to Madison High. He's third generation through Madison High, so I go back a long way. And I got tired of hearing counselors say, "You gotta go to college." Not talking to you about your skill sets, your desires, your hopes, your dreams. You just gotta go to college. Doesn't matter what degree you get. Now, I have 4 college degrees, so I'm all in for college. But when you have no focus in what your life is, I'll be honest with you. The whole idea of going into debt or paying for college, you need to have a career. You just have to. Would it surprise you to know that 60% of us in this country don't graduate from any college? But about 30% of that has some sort of college debt. See, if you borrow the money to go to college and you quit, you still gotta pay it back. So there's a lot of things that were frustrating me because there was no conversation. When I went through Madison High, there was a lady called Virginia Hanna. She was the counselor back then, and she was phenomenal. She knew every person. She knew my family's situation financially. She would talk to you. They would give you aptitude tests. I know that's horrible. I've always said, and I get a lot of flack about it, that the biggest lie we tell kids is you can be anything you want to be. That's a lie. You can't. I want to be in the NBA. I'm 5'7". Ain't gonna happen. But you can be phenomenal amount of things. That's the conversation that has to happen. So we started to sit down with some of the young people. John's son and my son are best friends, still live together in an apartment. So Jimmy and Sean, Mike Lammy, Mike Holm, Pat Shea, a lot of names from people, Kathy Myers, got together and I said, what would intrigue you about a program? And what came out of it was the basics to the leader program. And so everything about it, and this is the brochure for last year, was driven by young people. I only have 20 copies left from last year, so I brought them, but it was a conversation about what do you need? So we pushed very hard for exposure. Exposure to educational opportunities. Exposure to how do you pay for college? $37,000 average debt for people going to college now. $37,000. I know to wealthy people in Madison that's nothing, but to the rest of us, $37,000 is a lot of money. That's the average. So my son has no debt, so that means somebody has $70,000 worth of debt. So they helped develop the points of where they work. So the whole program is on exposure. Then we had to figure out how do we do it. I didn't want it to be a scout program. I love Boy Scouts, but I didn't like the way Boy Scouts approached membership at that time. So I created a foundation called Team Eagle Foundation, so that we could select anybody we wanted from any place in New Jersey. So kids are nominated from all over the state. We get an average of about 100 nominees. Their ages are 15 to 20, boys and girls. We've had every county in New Jersey represented except Salem. I don't know why, but we're gonna get one. And they come together at a camp in Rockaway called Winnebago, and they spend the week together. None of them really know each other, and they engage with experts. And each day they go to a different program. The first day we go to CCM, County College of Morris, which is a gem of the county college system, and I work with all of them. And they get to see what a county college is, because they don't realize how incredible it is. They think it's a glorified high school, and it certainly isn't. And they get to engage with counselors, high school and college, who don't work for their town, so they don't have to lie to them. And I say that halfway, but it's true. You know, my son asked a counselor at Madison High about Facebook and things like that, because Sean wanted to go ROTC to Norwich, which he did. And the guy says, well, you know, don't worry about that. Nobody looks at that. Don't. Well, these are college counselors, and they say, we look at it all the time before we bring you in. So you probably shouldn't put that a picture of you partying after winning a ball game. You probably shouldn't do it. But counselors at the high school are concerned because they don't want to hear back from parents. Well, these people could talk to them in a different way. And then each day, subsequent day, they go to different things. Sometimes it's a manufacturing plant. Sometimes it's a law firm, government. We go down and you know, deal with Trenton, and they get to see how things work and how they don't work. You know, we have environmental day, medical day, we have doctor for a day program. Summit Medical Group does a phenomenal job and does a doctor for a day program. Because if you ask most kids, you ask most adults, what are the careers in medicine? Doctor and nurse. There's thousands and thousands of high-tech jobs that are achievable. We look at different aspects of what a career might be and what are those options. The other side of it is we have an evening program which John is very intimate with. John and Sid Fakey have been doing our personal finance night, which is hilarious to me. Just listening to, they usually say, how many people have a credit card? And every hand goes up. Sean must feel a little bit slighted because I never got on my credit card, but every hand goes up. And then they'll ask them, how many have ever seen, not paid, seen a bill? It's funny, but it's not. How the hell do they know what it's all about if they don't even know what a bill is? And John and Sid go into some of this stuff, and they say, look, you got $1,000 that you owe, and you only pay the minimum. It's going to take you 15 years to pay it off. So it's a wonderful thing. We also have women in business. The Junior Achievement group comes and talks to our group about women in business. And to be honest with you, the boys get more out of it than the girls. And I think that's important. We have nights where we do some competitions. Friday night is Elevator Idol, an elevator speed competition. And all my alumni come back because they want to be the judges for this competition. And they pick out. Now, in the beginning of the week, I ask them to stand up and say your name, what school you're in, how old, what grade you're in, and what's the best thing in your life. And a lot of them get up there and they talk like this, and like this. But by the end of the week, they've practiced, they're engaged, because everything is about an elevator speech. We all know that in business. I also ask them, how many of you want to be in sales? How many hands go up? 0. Now, as an engineer, if somebody told me I had to be in sales when I was just a graduate, I was insulted. Once I owned my own businesses, I realized that every one of us are in sales, including the engineer who's I'm trying to convince you guys to go with my idea, to fund my idea. You ask mom for a cookie, that's sales. Trying to get dad to give you the car, that's sales. Trying to get all your friends to go to the movie you want to go to, that's sales. So it's very important that they do that. The most fun they pick out of a hat, the most fun one is that I always throw one in there for like, talk your way out of a speeding ticket. And they'll pull it out, and it's amazing. And not to be sexist, but most of the girls get that better than guys. They just do. They just can talk their way out of it, and it's a natural. So I wish that was my case. So the reality is that we created this program in 2010. We started 8 years ago, and it costs about $500 per person to go to this camp. No one has ever paid a nickel, because one way or another we earn that money, including from the Rotary. You guys, I think, Joe, I think you guys, 6 years in a row, you gave us $500, which is one person. And that's wonderful, appreciate that. The disappointment for me is that in the last 3 years, we've had no kids from Madison, which sort of hurts my ego, being a Madison boy and a Dodger born and bred. But it's a great program for those kids, and we like to try to look at the diamonds in the rough. The kids that maybe aren't going to go to the camps because they can't afford it, because they're quiet and they don't get selected, or maybe they're a little bit of troublemakers. We had one young man who won the state science medal from New Jersey. Brilliant young man. Lived in Irvington and had also been arrested 3 times because his situation wasn't good. Well, he came to the camp and I introduced him to a friend of mine who heads the innovation labs up at Picatinny Arsenal. And now, he was in one of the first groups, now he works for Picatinny Arsenal. They pay for his college because he's brilliant. And he's got a career pathway because somebody actually looked at him a little differently and not as a street kid in Irvington. And that's the important factor to me. I really don't care who you are, what you're all about. You know, John says, you know, that I worked with a lot of kids for Eagle Scout, and that's absolutely true. 251, Nick Lammy was number 251 because I told him that I was quitting, and he said, you gotta last one more. But it's not just about the Eagle Scouts in life, or the gold, the Girl Scout Gold kids. It's not about them, it's about all of us. It doesn't work. Diversity, you know, people ask me what diversity is, and diversity to me means all of us. Doesn't mean one group, doesn't mean inclusion of a couple of people, it means all of us, and that's how we get ahead. Whether it's in my day job at manufacturing, or whether it's in this type of stuff. You know, look at the Rotary, and believe me, I've known the Rotary and appreciated the Rotary for many years, but I look around and I get disappointed because there's no one new coming in. And that's a problem because we need diversity. Same thing with Boy Scouts or coaching Little League or anything else. There's not a lot of impact of young people, and we've got to get them back in there. And this is some of the things that we talk about at Leader. We've had 330 kids through the program over 8 years. About 111 have stayed active. Through the program, we've gotten 57-ish internships or apprenticeships. We've gained now, we're pushing, just stuff is coming in now because it's start of the school year, we're pushing $2 million in additional scholarships. And that's one of the things that I brought too, because it may be of interest to you. This is the biggest sheet program, and I have some copies back there. My wife and I do a talk on scholarships because there's billions of dollars available. You know, my son could, you know, financially couldn't need scholarships. And he also was going to a military university, but yet he got $80,000 in scholarships, so his master's is paid for. All kids can do this, but what do? Our kids go and they go to the high school and there's 15 scholarships, right? Everybody goes after those 15 scholarships. You win, you don't win, and that's it. I don't know, $37,000 in debt? There needs to be an option. So we talk a lot about this, and through the Boy Scout Venture crew that John helped me with as well, in 11 years we got $5 million worth of scholarships. It's an important conversation to have. Every dollar that you save is a dollar that you can put towards something else. So we talk a great deal about these things and where we go with this. I'm not really coming here to ask for any money or anything. I really am not, because you guys have been great to us and I don't really care about that. But on the last page of this sheet, I did say some things where the Rotary can help us with. Now, most of our money comes from private donation, banks. Kevin Cummins over at Investors Bank gives us a chunk every year. Plymouth Rock Assurance gives us a chunk every year. You know, and that's good, it's helpful, because it costs me about $50,000 a year to run the program and to fund our scholarships. We have 2 scholarships. Some of you might remember Bob Beeman. Bob Beeman was my best friend from birth, and Bob had no children, but spent 37 years in Boy Scouts as a leader. Well, Bob died suddenly a couple of years ago, so it's a scholarship for Bobby. The other scholarship is Tony DeSantis. Tony worked for me, loved the veterans, was a veteran, so we've given out now over $100,000. We have our own golf outing every year, and it's a little bit anti-golf. We call it the Jersey Guys because it's just fun. We have music blasting over the, you know, and That's our main income. John, you usually play. Didn't you win it like 3 years in a row?
He gave me some kind of trophy. I don't think they had any great meetings. I appreciate you.
Gotta have a trophy, David. So when we talk about it, as I said, you guys have been good to us. But I'd love to see you nominate a young person, or two, or three. You know, somebody that maybe doesn't always get the chance at going to something. You guys have a lot of contacts in town. You know, we have a program one day in the afternoon. I started it 3 years ago. I called it a reverse interview. Because what I found was a lot of kids, really capable kids, the first time they hit a roadblock, they stop. It's the mentality of what our generation has done as parents sometimes. Our parents wanted to make life better for us, wanted us to have a better life. Sometimes we look at it and we want to have our children have an easier life. They're two different things. So what I found is even kids that were going for Eagle Scout, they hit that first roadblock. You know, Mayor Bob Conley, you know, who I graduated high school with all those years ago, Bob says, can't do it in that park, they're done. I said, why didn't you ask them what park? There's 35 parks in Madison, why not ask it? But that's just what happens, because they don't see a pathway. They assume that everybody's pathway went just like this. You know, that's not the way it is for most people, right? We go around a tree, up and down, stuff. So that afternoon, the 40 kids at Leader, I bring in 40 plus professionals of all walks of life, and they talk to these kids, but the kids are the interviewer. Mr. Hogan, how'd you get to you? You're in banking, how long did you know, what are you doing? How did you get there? This is important stuff. So, you know, at the end of the day, you know, if you wanted to volunteer and come up for an afternoon, we really appreciate it. I'm gonna get Jeff, Jeff's gonna come up this year, one way or the other.
Excellent, I have to now.
Because we've worn out John Hogan, and you know, I can't keep people. You wanna play golf or sponsor something, that's important. And one of the things I'm talking to Jeff's boss about, Kevin Cummins, is to be able to provide internships. It doesn't matter what a kid needs to have exposure into the real world. So to be able to go and get a job at an investor's bank for a summer or something like that, that's really critical, you know, for a kid. It's not only the income that comes through, because I believe in paid internships, I don't believe in free internships. But more importantly, they're interacting with people, they're not sitting looking at their phone constantly, they're dealing with situations, and I think that's good. So, I'll shut the hell up. And thank you for having me, I appreciate what, yes sir?
How do kids get nominated?
Coaches, teachers, friends.
So they just send you an application?
We have a website.
Okay.
They go on, they nominate somebody, and then I have a group, mainly now young adults, that review these nominations and put them in a list. We can't take everybody, we can afford about 40 people a year, and that's about what a bus will take, because we drive all over the state. That's about what the camp can hold, so that's how it goes.
John, I have one question. You mentioned about all kids can't go to college. How many of these kids, what's the percentage of kids that go to college that go through this program, or are they all?
Well, it's hard to say now, Joe, because everybody goes to college.
Are they all?
We funnel kids to college even if they don't have anything. You know, and that's part of the issue, because we say at 18, choose. And if you don't choose college, we say, okay, either get a job or go to county. So what happens is that we go different ways. And in Europe, they don't look at it that way. In the United States, though, we look at college for everything. But if you come out of college with a humanities degree and you go through an industrial school that teaches you how to be a CNC machinist, that CNC machinist is going to be making $100,000 in 3 years, and you'll be working at Starbucks with the other. And that's all learning is good, but a college degree has to be something that we put to work. And it's not, it is the reality, as I said. There's, I deal with kids that call me all the time. I just had a young girl that went through, Johns Hopkins on a scholarship. She owes $65,000. She has a humanities degree from Johns Hopkins, wonderful school. She can't get a job. So I got her connected with Berkeley College, and she's getting trained in HR. But this is a wonderful young lady, smart as hell. Her parents are both laborers, so they didn't know. She's got $65,000 worth of debt. She can't pay it all. So we gotta find some ways. Sorry.
Thank you very, very much.